Well, good afternoon and welcome to yet again another episode of the Shy Peace Show. I'm your host, Dr. Peter K.B. St. Jean. Here with you for the next few minutes. We have an exciting show ahead. I want to remind you that we are the Peaceful World Movement, located in 11451 South Michigan Avenue in Chicago, Illinois, 60628. Our website is www.shypeace.net. 716-603-0992, or you can reach me directly at peter@peacefulworldmovement.org. And we are happy to be here today. It's a nice day outside. It's not to be fooled, it's Chicago, so it may get a little bit warmer, and I want to, or colder perhaps. I want to remind you that this is a live show, and you can reach us at 312-738-1060. And today I have a special guest, a colleague of mine, who will introduce herself to you, Dr. Alfredi Widom from Loyola University, and also Nonviolence Works. Thank you and welcome. Thank you for joining our show.
Thank you for inviting me, Peter. It's really an honor and a delight to be on this show. And it's very exciting to have a cable program on the Peaceful World Movement.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm sure this is not the last time that our guests will see you and hear from you, but some of them may be the first time. May you please introduce yourself to them?
Yes. Alfredi Widom. I teach sociology at Loyola University Chicago on the North Shore campus, and I've been teaching there about 10 years in a variety of areas of sociology, including community, sociology of religion, social problems. But most recently, I've become focused on the sociology of violence, because clearly, as we've seen, that is an issue in the city of Chicago and in the United States as a whole. And I'm very interested in participating in making social and cultural change so as to reduce the level of violence.
And I guess, should I break the news? I think you are sometimes a better storyteller than me. So maybe you can tell the
I
viewers,
doubt that.
Tell the viewers how we met, how we got to know each other.
Well, we have a mutual colleague. He is the provost of North Park University, Michael Emerson. And Michael and I have shared quite a bit of interest in sociology of religion topics. He has studied for many years multiracial congregations all over the United States. I have also studied multiracial congregations and congregations of different race and ethnic groups, mainly in Chicago and in the city of Indianapolis. So we often would meet at conferences and so on, and I was very excited when he came back to the city of Chicago, where he was an undergraduate student at Loyola. So coming back to Chicago, I took the opportunity to visit with him, told him about my interest in studying violence and nonviolence, and he said, "Oh, there is a colleague of mine that you must meet, Peter St. John." So I called Peter, and we met to share our interests and our concerns, and Peter was very interested in the organization that I was collaborating with, or co-founding at the time, Nonviolence Works, and he has come to meetings with our group, and most recently completed a Train the Trainers series to help with the work of actually training in communities, schools, the juvenile system in nonviolence and cultural change.
Yes, you see, I told you you're a better storyteller than I am. a good sociologist. And the provost, when the provost sends you an email and say, "I need you to talk to this person," you kind of get on it, right?
Yes,
and
yes,
knowing
yes.
Michael Emerson is a man of good taste, he never sends any responsibility my way. Is not something that is pretty impressive, and he knows very well. He's been to our building in the South Side of Chicago. He's a staunch supporter of our work, and our prayers go out to him also as he recovers from a health situation. I'm wishing him all the best. So I also, as Alfredi said, I also trained with one of the brothers, Phil. Phil is one of the trainers that Phil Bradley for the Nonviolence Works. He worked directly with the movements, the nonviolent movements through the time of Dr. King. Bevel is his mentor. He's an excellent brother. I've learned a lot from him and look forward to working in collaboration. Again, we want to remind you that this is a live show, that is the Peaceful World Movement Show. You can call us at 312-738-1060. And I also want to tell you, because Nonviolence Works is a non-for-profit organization that is set up here in Chicago, yes. And there's a conference that is coming up here on the November 3rd and 4th at Loyola University. Alfredi, can you tell our viewers a bit about this Nonviolence Works, a cultural change that's happening at Loyola?
Well, when the three of us who co-founded Nonviolence Works, Philip Bradley's president, Larry Campbell is vice president, is treasurer, and I'm vice president, one of our goals was to reach the community much broader than the more local activities that we had been doing up to that time. So we devised a symposium to introduce both Loyola, where I teach, and particularly focusing on students at Loyola, undergraduate students at Loyola, but also the community at large, about what are the ways in which we have to act together as a city, as members of communities, as citizens, as residents, to overcome, to address the violence problems in the city. So a cultural change is our approach to addressing violence, that we need to be able to work together. We need to be able to understand the roots of violence, and we need to learn the techniques of overcoming violence so that we can become a nonviolent person. So this symposium is organized to help our university and the community at large in addressing this. Now, I should say that the goal of the symposium is to bring the academic, the practical, and the spiritual dimensions of nonviolence together so that we can have a dialogue among those three components and people who participate and work and teach and worship to share our insights, so that it isn't just about researching problems of violence and coming up with academic solutions. It's also connecting that to what do people who work in the trenches, who labor in the vineyards day after day, year after year, what have their experiences and insights been? And then connecting that to the important spiritual dimension of nonviolence. We know that nonviolence is basic to the Christian message. Jesus Christ articulated it, and it is essential for us to understand how important it is to be able to create the kind of culture and civilization that we want to live in.
Yes, and you see the lineup here includes various practitioners, different scholars. We see Phil Bradley is one of the practitioners of Nonviolence Works. We have a scholar from DePaul. We have Cook County Sheriff's Office. We have someone from a reverend from St. Agatha's Church, another colleague from Loyola University, the Black Catholic Initiative, David Jones. Reverend David Jones. You should tell me about that. Carlos Lopez, I hope, at the St. Catholic Church, and we have also Arthur at Loyola University of Chicago, and we have Unity Knots. I don't know about
Untying Knots.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Untying Knots. Michael McGillicuddy.
Yeah, they're all Untying Knots, and a colleague from Northwestern University, and yours truly from North Park University as one of the presenters there. And we encourage, right, it's open free and open to the general public.
Yes, it is.
And Alfredi always hosts some real great food. So there's going to be lobster and steaks there.
Well, we're going to reach toward that. We might not we might quite get there, but
You'll
we are
try,
trying to do
right?
something tasty.
Try to do something tasty, and I look forward. I look forward to. Now we also see that there's the keynote speaker, Kathy Kelly, who is a global peace activist. Can you
Yes.
tell our viewers a little bit about Kathy Kelly and why her?
Yes. Fortunately, Kathy Kelly is a resident of the city of Chicago, so it is our good fortune that she is here. But she's a global, as you said, she's a global peace activist, and she's a co-founder of the Center for Creative Nonviolence. And her work has centered in war zones. She is very active right now in Afghanistan, and there are very few, as I understand it now, there are very few NGOs, non-governmental organizations, that continue to work in Afghanistan because of the danger there. She is one of them. And she has done the kind of civil resistance on a global scale. That is, she has been willing to do the kinds of demonstrations that are necessary to draw attention to the problems of endless war. She has gone to jail many times, actually several dozen times, and she has spoken around the country and around the world on how to change the kind of world that we're, the war-like world that we live in. And so hence the title of her talk is Imagine a Nonviolent World. Imagine a Nonviolent World.
Yes, so we are looking forward to that. Myself, I'm looking forward to be there. It is the weekend of the independence of the country of Dominica, where I'm from. And you know, on September 18th, the Dominica was devastated by Hurricane Maria.
Yes.
And I am
yes.
the founder and the executive director of the Dominica Association of Chicagoland. And on the night of November 3rd, we have an event at Wild Hair in the city, and we also have on the 5th at North Park University, we have a brunch, an event there, and persons who want to learn more about that can go to www.dominicachicagoland, DOMINICA Chicagoland.org or .com to learn more about those events. And so I will be, on the 4th, I will be presenting, the presentation is on the 4th, right? The
Yes,
presentation on the
correct.
4th. So on that Saturday, I'm looking
Saturday.
forward to be there. Again, callers, viewers, I want to remind you that wherever you are in the world, and I know you may be watching us from different areas because I know you have the link to www.cantv.org/hotline, and you can see us live. You can see on the screen, there's this number 312-738-1060. We encourage you to call in with the questions that you have to Dr. Whittam, any questions you have about for us about issues relevant to the items that we've been speaking about. Now, Alfredi, the idea of the Shy Peace Show is to bring on guests who, at least from our screening of our guests, are involved in somehow or the other contributing to a more peaceful Chicago and a more peaceful world by extension. And it is based on that framework that we were willing to, or we recognized to bring you on as such. But I know you have introduced the work that you do and your interest organization that you're a part of. But how would you characterize your own personal journey, your life journey, as contributing to a more peaceful Chicago or a more peaceful world?
Well, thank you for that very large question. Peter, before I attempt to answer that, can I just also add, since we were talking about the symposium, we will have a very special homilist on Saturday to conclude our symposium.
Can you tell our viewers what a homilist is?
A homilist is a priest or a minister who gives a sermon, and it's often used in the Catholic Church. Reverend George Clemens, Catholic priest, who has been working in the south side of Chicago for many, many decades. Actually, he celebrated, I believe, his 60th anniversary recently. And he is a priest who has been part of the civil rights movement, who's been innovative in many ways in addressing cultural change. He was the first to actually adopt young black men, or young black children, I should say, who are now grown men and women, as a priest. He has been involved in the parishes, in linking with people who were formerly incarcerated. He has really put himself on the line in a lot of ways to at the level of his local parish, Holy Angels, and as a spokesperson for Black Catholics and for all Catholics in the city of Chicago. So we're very, very pleased that he will give us a call to action at the conclusion of our symposium, send us forth with the kind of new learnings and new inspiration that we hope to achieve as a result of bringing these groups together. And he will be speaking, his homily will be on the nonviolent Jesus.
Oh, good. And is that Reverend David Jones, you said? Is
No,
David
that
Jones?
will be Reverend George Clemens.
With Judge Clemens.
George
And you
Clemens.
said he's associated with Holy Angels? Is that the
Yes.
one in Oakwood
Yes,
Boulevard,
correct.
400 Oakwood
Correct.
there? Actually, my book, Pockets of Crime, was set right there. I did my doctoral dissertation research right there in Brownsville and
Okay, yeah.
Oakwood Boulevard, yes. Well, I guess now you're going to tell
Now I
me
have to
about
answer your other question.
the small question.
Right, personally.
Well-
Well, my journey began a number of years ago when I was writing my dissertation. I was interested in questions of the consistent ethic of life, which is a principled position articulated by the Catholic bishops in the 1980s that says that you have to bring social, moral, and political questions together. They're very difficult questions to bring together, but if you approach it from what, at that time, Cardinal Joseph Bernardin had written, together with the other bishops in the U.S., if you bring those things together under a consistent ethic, then you have to be opposed to not just abortion as a principle, but you also have to be opposed to war and nuclear weapons. You have to be opposed to euthanasia, but you also have to be opposed to capital punishment. You have to support social and economic justice. When you can take that broad ethical position, then you have what he has called a consistent ethic of life. You are not excluding anybody, neither unborn babies or fetuses, nor convicted murderers from the grace of God. And so that was the initial interest that I had. And then over time, I was working in social problems, I was working in communities and so on, as I was saying. It was then a year ago that Philip Bradley, who's our president of Nonviolence Works, and Larry Campbell, who's the treasurer of Nonviolence Works, have talked about how to be more active, be able to reach a broader audience with our developing interest in nonviolence as a position, as a cultural and social and moral position. Because the conditions in the city at that time were ones in which many people were concerned about the violence problem, but nobody seemed to have a good solution to it. And everybody was talking about, police this and having a lot of protests and so on that were not particularly effective. But because Philip has been working so many years in the Southside community teaching nonviolence that he learned, as you said, from Reverend James Bevel, who was the strategist to Dr. King, and character development, it seemed very clear to me and to Larry that this was an effective approach. This was actually solving problems. This was not just about, being together in some peaceful manner, which is important, right? But you really have to unlearn past violent behaviors before you can learn new nonviolent behaviors. And that takes work, training, education.
Well, we are winding down the Peaceful World Movement show here at CAN TV. I think we have a caller. Caller, can you? Thank you for calling. Was that a caller? All right, I guess the caller is not here. Well, we're winding up. We have about 5 more minutes of the show. I want to remind you that we are the Peaceful World Movement, located on 11451 South Michigan Avenue in the city of Chicago. You can go to our website at www.shypeace.net to learn more about us. And we look forward to speaking with you. 716-603-0992. You can send me an email at peter@peacefulworldmovement.org. And thank you for answering the question and giving us a sense of where your personal journey began and as it goes along. And look, we have a caller. Caller, thank you for calling. May I please have your question or your comment?
My question is, after the event at Loyola, what is the expectation for participants once they leave? What are they supposed to do with that call to action?
That's a very good question.
Excellent question, yes. We have a number of activities that we are planning for here on out. One of them is to work in the 50 community areas to create nonviolent zones in each one of them. And we are interested in recruiting 6 individuals, multiracial, multicultural group of 6 for each community area, who will then address, through the training that we provide, each of the important institutions functioning in that community area, so that every institution can understand what they have to do in order to change their practices to become nonviolent ones. So we're talking about medical institutions, educational institutions, government institutions, business institutions, the family, so all of those groups have to be addressed. We can't just talk to small community groups or block clubs. Yes, we'll certainly do that, but we have to be able to address all of the essential groups that work together to make a community what it is, so that everybody becomes educated in how to behave differently, first in terms of their own understanding of themselves, and then how do they want to be able to relate to other people? And so that includes, of course, talking with teenagers, gang members, people who have problems with domestic violence.
So there will be some sort of call to action. People will be able to sign up to
Yes,
be able to be
they
a
will be
part
able
of
to
something.
sign
I
up.
think that is what the caller
Yes.
is interested in hearing about, and it's good to hear that you will just not enjoy the great food that we are promising to have with the company. Caller, we have a few seconds for you. Thank you for calling. What's your question or comment?
Yes, my quick question is, can you tell me a little bit more how you plan to actually engage the schools in this initiative?
Well, the schools, for example, are able to provide a certain amount of time each day for enrichment activities, and it varies school to school. Right? So what we're doing right now is working in a school, in a high school, an alternative high school in South Shore, Excel Academy of South Shore, in which we spend an hour on a Tuesday midday talking about the kind of change of heart that young people need, a safe space for them to talk about their concerns.
Yes,
and their
well,
problems.
we have to wind up. Caller, thank you for calling, and we have to wind. Thank you. We have a few more seconds here. I just wanted to do this. I'll apologize for interrupting you, but I meant to interrupt you. Sorry about that. We have to keep in here. We have a few more seconds before we get out of the studio. Time runs by so quickly. We should bring you back and get free to talk about that. This is Dr. Peter K.B. St. Jean thanking you for watching our Shy Peace show. And Afridi, thank you for winding up. And again, we want to remind you that you can go to your Loyola University on the 4th of the 3rd or the 4th of November to participate in this show, in this event. Dr. Peter Kibi Saint-Jean, thank you for watching.